Hey and welcome to Neverwinter with Aragon. So I've been working on my tank build, my paladin tank build to be specific. And so I've done some in-depth testing and analysis on the stats you want to be having on your tank. Now, along with giving yourself as much survivability as you can, you also want to have somewhat of team support. So like masterwork, weapons, companion, summoned one for your team, and a companion enhancement. That's kind of the minimum. Okay, along with the aura equipped bonus from your mount and a combat power from your mount, also all to support the team. And depending then on the class, you might want some powers as well to support the team. So to throw all that in, we're not going to be seeing all like 90% reliably on all our defensive stats. We have 5 of them. Technically we have 7 actually, because we have these 5 plus incoming healing plus maximum hit points. All helps towards tanking. You could even take it further and go, stamina regen, movement speed, and recharge speed and action point gain, all pretty important to tanking as well. So there's a lot of different stats you can focus on as the tank. And in this video, we want to focus on what companions do you want to be having. What summoned companion, there are a good few you want to have, and what equip bonuses, all equating to the question of what companions do you want to be having as a tank. Now, in general, it shouldn't matter what tank you are. You'll still be wanting to have the same equip bonuses. You'll still want to have the same summoned companions. But just be aware that each tank has different forte. So for a paladin, we have deflect severity, which is the worst out of all the tanks. Your fighter, you will have your critical avoidance, and your barbarian will have your awareness. So you'll gain a bit more of a boost to those stats, and thus you might want to have to take other options that would then be better to balance your other stats. Now, as a tank, I've deduced that it's most important to just focus on defense, awareness, critical avoidance. From there, you also want to get some stamina regen and some incoming healing, and then lastly, maximum hit points. Forget about deflect and deflect severity. I've said in the past that you could go for it, that it's a viable option, and I did in the past focus on a build that disregarded critical avoidance, kept awareness at about 60%, and then focused on deflect and deflect severity. It was viable. It worked. I could run all content with it. However, when Master Template Spider comes out and I see we're struggling a good bit more just to survive one-shots. Yes, you can survive them even on a deflect build without critical avoidance by having the correct timing of your survivability powers and making sure you're blocking and you have the guard for those powers. But it put a lot of pressure on you to make sure you knew the exact timing of the mechanics and when you're going to take the big hit and make sure you're prepared for it. Because the maximum deflect chance is 90%, so there's always that 1 in 10 chance that it doesn't deflect, and you don't want that chance to cause you to die. A dead tank's a useless tank, you lose aggro and the boss kills everybody else. It made it a lot more risky, so I decided to mess around, switch things up, and focused a bit more on critical avoidance and just left out, just completely put aside deflect and deflect severity, not taking any gear that would stack those. Since you also need twice as much stats, I would need like 20% deflect and deflect severity to equate for the same effectiveness of just 10% awareness or 10% critical avoidance if the enemy has a 100% crit chance. So overall, switching to just defense, awareness, and critical avoidance gave me a lot more survivability, a lot more reliable survivability. I wasn't getting like one shot every now and again when I didn't deflect and forgot to, let's say, block the hit or didn't have the stamina for that hit. So we move back to companions. First of all, your summoned companion. I've gone over this before, and what I recommend is like these top 5, 6, 7. You want to have like Spine Devil, Drizzt, Tutor, Scorpion, and like Bruner. Those are like the best team support companions. Portobello's kind of situational. Spine Devil is good, but only in like boss fights. And the Scorpion will also be good, but again, only in boss fights. But it'll also depend on what boss fight. Like in Tiamat, it's invaluable. But in something like Tara the Mad Mage, not really important. And then there's like the protection ones, Bruner being the best one to give survivability to everybody. Or it could even be the Lion if everybody can group up on top of the Lion for certain mechanics. But then the Lion will be attacking the boss, so you need to make sure you're positioned correctly and that you're Companion's also positioned correctly. So again, I would recommend as a tank, you have the Spine Devil, Drizzt, Tutor, the Scorpion, and like Bruner and the Lion. Now you don't have to get all of them, you could just have one or two and you'll probably make do. So that's your summoned companion. The reason I do not suggest like an augment companion, you could have the Black Dragon Ion Stone, I know I've ran it in the past, is because they just give ratings. And we're only focusing on like 3 or 4 stats that give ratings. You're not going to be able to fit them. You can see already our ratings are pretty much maxed out. I can go buff up here and yeah, we're over capped on defense. That is because of our runic aura here. We could adjust some things a little bit and reduce that by like 1000, or I could just get away with using lesser potions and the defense would go down there. But awareness is also maxed out because when we're in a party we gain 6000 here and we gain like another 3000 from people running the equip power of pack tactics, this one right here, which would give awareness. So we've got those ratings sorted. Augment Companion is going to be useless to us unless it gives us deflect severity and like incoming healing, which not really the case, and you're better off with just having a team support companion. However, an augment will help if you're still like leveling your character, still progressing with gear, don't have all those ratings maxed out. I would suggest like the Black Dragon Ion Stone with its hit points, critical avoidance, and defense. It'll help you out pretty good there. You ideally would want one again with like defense, awareness, and critical avoidance, or like this Ion Stone has, hit points instead of awareness. I wouldn't really actually recommend what I've said in the past, which is the cat, because it gives that deflect and deflect severity, which we're not going to be focusing on. And then you had other ones like the butterfly, which is defense, deflect, and awareness. Again, gives that deflect, which is kind of useless. So we move to the equip bonuses. Now you can see the setup I'm running here, and I would recommend in most cases this. If you're in a particular group, you might even be able to run with the Feral Velociraptor. But you want to have everybody in your group using it, or it can just not be worth it. So my list is right here. I've kind of ranked all the companions that you have there, the bonuses that they provide. And you can see like down the bottom here, we have the Tamed Velociraptor, and it's a star. It's not ranked on anything. Most players will want you to have that for the team support, for giving the DPS players and the healers that power. It's a massive bonus. It's 18.75% maximum. It's an insane amount of stats compared to any companion that can give. You can see on the first place there is the Feral Velociraptor because of the amount of awareness it can give. Again, if you're in a party with everybody using it, that's 18.75% maximum. If you can have 2 or 3 people using it, it's even still worth it because the other options, again, are only going to give you 7.5%. Then you can see the Golden Deep Crow, just true awareness there, Myconid, Bruner, Battlehammer, Frost Mimic, and you can see all the bonuses they're providing you. And let's go over why I'm prioritizing like that. You can see I'm prioritizing awareness first, then I'm prioritizing critical avoidance, and then it's defense. Now the reason I do this is because the math behind the survivability you gain through those stats. First of all, when you look at like defense versus awareness, you can see, let's say we're to gain the option to choose 10% between either or. If we're at 40% on both stats and give 10% to defense or 10% to awareness, you can see it doesn't matter. You will gain exactly the same amount of survivability overall. No difference there. However, once you get higher values, so now we're at 80% defense and awareness, and if you choose to put 10% on defense or awareness, you can see it's better to put it on awareness by like 4%. You're reducing the enemy's damage that deals to you by like 4%. So it's only at this point of where you're at 40% and add a 10% on is defense equal to awareness. So get like defense to 50% minimum, it should not be a problem because we all have Forte, which gives us a ton of defense, along with then so many stats, so many gear pieces which just give defense ratings that you're going to end up way over that. And then you want to stack on awareness. So we just focus on awareness as the #1 priority to give us the biggest survivability. We can compare like awareness to critical avoidance, and you can see if the enemy has 100% crit chance, they're going to critically hit you all the time, or you're going to take a big hit. And it doesn't really matter if they're like have a 50% chance to not crit you. You want to be surviving that hit if they do crit you, right? You don't want to have a 50% chance to survive. So you could consider it then as a 100% crit chance. So if we do that, you can compare the critical avoidance and awareness, and you can see at, again, this 40%, add 10% to either side is the exact same. And you can see when you get to the 80%, add 10% either side, it's again exactly the same. So critical avoidance is equal to awareness when the enemy has a 100% crit chance. When the enemy doesn't have a 100% crit chance, critical avoidance is like half as effective because the enemy can only critically hit you half the time. The problem is you don't want to be dying due to those critical hits. And in most cases, yes, since critical avoidance would give you overall a little bit less survivability on average per hit, that's usually fine because the healer can back you up by healing you. As long as you're not taking a massive hit and then another massive hit which kills you, which doesn't give healer any time to heal you, you don't want to be taking 2 critical hits and then you're dead. You want to be taking like 3, 4 instead. So we focus on the priority as awareness, then critical avoidance, then defense. And from there, it's, generally like maximum hit points and incoming healing. Most cases your healers are fine and you can just stack more hit points instead of incoming healing, but it can again depend what healers you're playing with, what content, how well they are geared up. And then of course you also want some stamina regen in some places. For example, I'm using like the kits on my neck, rings and waist for stamina regen. I'm using the artifacts here, 2 of them, for stamina regen. But there are other areas where I'm deciding not to take stamina regen, like my boons. I decide to take incoming healing instead and action point gain. Or my ability scores, I choose to take constitution instead of like strength for stamina regen, and I take charisma for the forte and the recharge speed. So hopefully this list helps you guys out, and you can see there's lots of different options. I mainly wanted to make this so that you aren't just buying, everybody's buying like the Golden Deep Crow. You can see there's other alternatives there. You don't have to buy the Myconid either. There's alternatives. You could get like a Bruner, the Frost Mimic, the War Dog, the Durgar Guard, Skeleton, Cleric Disciple, Green Slime. All very good options there. I don't really recommend down from there, but just keep in mind of these slots. For example, you can see all of these just want to go in defense. And then what happens? What do you throw in offense? Well, offense is pretty simple. You just throw in a tamed Velociraptor. Yes, it's not going to help you with survivability, but it will provide your team with support so that they can do more damage and they can do more healing. And I think it's invaluable, and as a tank, it's our duty to run it. We can run it. We can sacrifice that bit to help the team. So that's our offense slot sorted. Then you have utility. I would recommend the Cleric Disciple, and then the rest we can have 3 defensive slots because we have 2 universal and 1 defense. And I highly recommend the Lich as like the second place there because he's just going to give you damage resistance of 7.5%. That's some true damage resistance. We don't get a whole lot of those bonuses outside of just our powers, which generally don't have much of an uptime. Yes, it doesn't give you your stats, but for now it's like the only guy who's going to give you that. So hopefully this is helpful to you tanks out there. Again, you don't need to spend so much on like the really expensive tank companions. It's not the end of the world. Just try and get ones again that give you the benefits of damage resistance, defense, awareness, critical avoidance, and then from there you can still get away with using ones that might have some hit point bonuses or incoming healing. You will get some bonuses that might provide a bit of healing to you, but I don't really recommend those bonuses which are not too reliable. You would have ones that could give you a little bit of shield every now on a situation, but again, you have a healer who's going to back you up in endgame content. You don't need any extra healing from any silly bonus. You just want to mitigate as much of the damage as you can. Special thank you again to all of these channel members for their continued support. And I'll see you guys around. Goodbye for now.